Baruch Hashem Adonai. Blessed be the name of the Lord. Today's topic is the army of locusts from the book of Revelation. In the book of Revelation, we read about a locust army that will come out of the bottomless pit. That's in chapter 9. This happens in the seventh seal, is the fifth and sixth trumpets. This is toward the very end. After this, the last thing that happens is the last trump, the seventh trumpet, which announces the coming of Jesus. It says that the kingdoms of this world are becoming the kingdoms of our Lord Jesus Christ. So this is the last wrath of God being poured out on the earth. These are the worst things that will happen just before Jesus comes. And the army of locusts delivers a lot of that. It takes a major part in the very bad events that happen on earth just before the second coming. Now, locust is a plague. It's a curse. We read about the locust coming on earth for the first time in Exodus 10:13. It says that Moses stretched out his staff and the east wind had brought the locusts. And they were the punishment on Egyptians, and they came from the east. It was always a very bad thing, but it will be even worse when the locust comes on the earth towards the very last days. The locust army released in the fifth trumpet tortures people, and then comes the sixth trumpet, and they proceed to killing 1/3 of the mankind, and then they assemble at the Euphrates River and take part in the Battle of Armageddon. So in Revelation 9:2, it says that the shaft of the bottomless pit was opened, and smoke rose from the shaft, and the air and sun were darkened, and locusts came on the earth. And they had power to sting, and they were allowed to torment people for 5 months, but not to kill them. The torment was like the torment of a scorpion when it torments someone, when it stings someone. In those days, people will seek death and will not find it. They will long to die, but death will flee from them. This is one of the most amazing, difficult to explain statements, that people will seek death, and it will be not just individual cases, but it will be widespread. It says people will seek death. The pain, the suffering on earth will be so bad that people would rather die than endure and try to survive. The will to survive will be gone. Usually people try to cling to life, even in very dire situations, but this one says that people would be hoping to die, but death will flee from them. And then we read in the sixth trumpet, the number of the troops was 200 million. This is the size of the locust army. It's the same army. First of all, we need to understand that the fifth trumpet and sixth trumpet talk about the same army because the description of the army is the same. They have breastplates, both of them, Revelation 9:9 and 9:19, fifth trumpet and sixth trumpet. And also they have tails, and they have stings in their tails, and with those stings they torture people, they torment people, they sting people. And this is not something common. This is very unusual. So when we read the same description very close by in the Bible, this talks about the same army. And this is in Revelation 9:10 for the fifth trumpet, and then trumpet 6, Revelation 9:19. The tails are like serpents, and by means of them they wound. So it's the same army, fifth and sixth trumpet, and that's why we know that that army is 200 million people. And I say people because I believe this is a human army. I don't think this is some half scorpions, half humans, or 1/3 horses, 1/3 humans, whatever, because the description of this army is very similar to the one in Joel chapter 1. The book of Joel, Old Testament. It talks about locusts which came over to Israel and devoured everything, and then God promises restoration. And that army of locusts from Joel 1 is described as having lion's teeth. Now, this is the same thing chapter 9 in the book of Revelation tells us about the locust army. It says in Revelation 9:8 that their teeth are like lion's teeth. Again, very unusual. So if we read the same thing about a locust army with lion's teeth in Joel 1, and locust army with lion's teeth even in Revelation 9, we can safely assume that they are the same kind of an army. Yet the one in Joel 1 is a human army, because Joel 1:6 says, "A nation has come up against my land, powerful and beyond number." So the lion's teeth is a metaphor which refers to the power and strength of this army, and we can safely assume if that's the case in Joel 1:6, it's also the case in Revelation 9. So this is people, this is a human army, and let's look at the whole description in the book of Revelation. So first of all, we learn that they come from the east, just like the original locust in the book of Revelation came from the east. Eventually, they will make their way to the Euphrates River and take part in the Battle of Armageddon. It will be an army from hell. A fallen angel will be the king, the commander, one of the top generals of Satan, if not Satan himself. His name is Abaddon. The name means destruction. In Greek, it's Apollyon, and I think it's the same as Apollo. And I can't believe the lies that we were fed in schools that Apollo is a nice Greek god of poetry and music, where in reality, this is a fallen angel who sows destruction. The army will be 200 million people. They will torment those who don't belong to God. They will have the authority to only torment those who don't have the seal of God on their foreheads. The seal of God seems to be the opposite of the mark of the beast. The torment will be so bad that people will want to die. It will feel like being stung by a scorpion, and it will last 5 months. The army will flash their wealth. I don't know how else to call it, because they will have golden crowns on them or on their horses, and an army with golden crowns, that's very unusual, and that's not even gold, it looks like gold, so it clearly points to vanity, to the need to show how rich they are. They will have equipment, breastplates, wings, chariots, the stinging machines, the lion's teeth, that's a metaphor, but it will be very technologically advanced. This is not just a ragtag group of people, and people will be hurt by firepower, because it says that people will be hurt by smoke, fire, and sulfur. And their banners, their collars, the colors of the army will be red, yellow, and blue. And that's also kind of rare to read about the description of the banners. Going by all this, I believe this army is China. This is the Chinese army. China will be the locust's army. China will be the locust army from the book of Revelation. It's the numbers, the size, they come from the east, and I know east in the Bible refers to geographical directions in reference to Israel. So traditionally it was the countries close by east of Israel, the Amalekites, the Moabites, Midianites, and so forth. They were close by because in the beginning the whole history of the world happened in that small Middle East area around Israel, Persia, Babylon, and so forth, Assyria. But today we're not limited by the geographical distances. And an army can be east of Israel, like China is, and be far away, but they can still come over and attack Israel. They have ships, planes, intercontinental ballistic missiles. So the distance is not a limit anymore, and that's why I believe it could be China. It could be the Muslims, because today they live in the areas which were traditionally the kings of the east of Israel. So it's a possibility. This all is referring to Islamic armies. I just have to be fair and consider all sides of this issue. But the army has to be 200 million soldiers. And who else but China can produce that kind of numbers? Muslims could have a 200 million soldier army, but they would have to unite for that, and that's a problem. I don't quite see them being united under one command, because Iraq would have trouble working under the Iranians and whatever. But China is already united under one communist dictatorship, and they can easily get that army going if they start on it, and I think they are already working on it. weaponry. Now, this is something that really convinced me that this will be China, because this whole description in the book of Revelation, chapter 9, that people will seek death, they will be stung by these scorpion-like things, the tails of a scorpion, and it will be so painful that they will rather die than endure the pain. This is just difficult to figure out. How would this happen? How would this play out in the end? And I just read about the laser gun being supposedly invented by China. They say they are producing now this laser machine, laser weapon, which will burn human skin. It will cause pain beyond endurance, and it will be non-lethal. So it will not kill you. You could wish you were dead, because the pain will be so bad that it will be beyond endurance. And this comes from China. And that also shows you the intentions, the future hopes for the application for this weapon that China has. In this video released by the company that produces the weapon, they're shooting at this boy who is holding a heart, and they are setting the boy on fire. Now, how cruel and twisted is that? See, the United States, I think, has been in possession of laser technology for a while, and I never heard of them bragging that they have a weapon that can burn human skin, cause pain beyond endurance, and then they would be shooting at little pictures of little boys and setting them on fire. That just shows you the intentions of China. They are so happy having this weapon that will burn human skin. So this is the closest that I can think of the prophecy from chapter 9 of Revelation being fulfilled here. The weapon is ready, and other elements will fall into place, and that shows us how close we are to the second coming of Jesus, how close we are to the total fulfillment of all the prophecies from the book of Revelation. The colors of the army are red, yellow, and blue, and these are the colors of China. They have many different flags, flag designs over the years, and proposal flag designs, and usually they all have red, yellow, and blue. Some of the military branches of China have some green, but not much. And the Muslim colors are different. They have usually more green and black. But the Chinese colors are red, yellow, and blue. And these are the colors of the Chinese dragon as well. Chinese dragon is usually red, yellow, and blue. And dragon is Satan. And that brings me to the next point, that Satan will be in charge of this army. So that's very fitting. Satan will be in charge of this Locust army coming out of China. It may not be Satan himself, like I said, it may be one of his generals, but ultimately it is the devil who will be leading them. And China is known as the land of the dragon. The dragon is everywhere in China, which is just ridiculous. People actually wish the parents, if the parents have a newborn baby, others may wish them, may your child be like a dragon. The emperor of China claims to have descended from the dragon, and so forth. It's just so prevalent in China that it totally makes sense that they would follow that one which they worshipped for generations. Now, to be fair, the Muslims are also led by the devil, but China is more of an openly country, more openly worshipping the dragon. Now, the name, locusts. Locusts are voracious insects that travel in large numbers, and they devour everything in sight. Did you know that the Chinese people from Hong Kong, not the white people who could be accused of being racist, no, the Chinese people from Hong Kong call the Chinese from the mainland locusts? Because Chinese from China, from the mainland, they come to Hong Kong and they devour everything. Supermarket shelves are empty. They drive the real estate prices through the roof with their voracious purchases. And people from Hong Kong had just had enough. And they started calling them locusts. So there's definitely something in the name that fits.
As they fly, swarms join up with other swarms to form gigantic plagues several billion strong and as much as 40 miles wide. They will consume every edible thing that lies in their path. Once the food has gone, The steady roar of a billion beating locust wings will once again be replaced by nothing more than the sound of the desert wind.
Now, to be fair, in the Bible, peoples called locusts are the ones from east of Israel, like I said, Amalekites, Midianites, and so forth. And today, those areas are populated by the Muslims, so it could be the Islamic armies. It says that in the end, this army will make its way to the Euphrates River and will take part in the Battle of Armageddon. What would China be doing at the Euphrates River? Well, for one thing, did you know that China is everywhere now? They are not just trying to take over the Hollywood, and they are not just trading unfairly, and they are not just trying to infiltrate universities, and not just taking over the Spratly Islands and grab resources of the neighboring countries in around South China Sea, but they are also in South America. They are in Africa. They are everywhere. And if they are not there yet, they are making their way to every little place on the globe because they are rebuilding the Silk Road. The network of roads connecting China to other places, it was called the Silk Road. It's not just actually one road, it's a network of roads, and they are rebuilding this network. And one of the major arteries goes from China to the Euphrates River. It crosses the Euphrates River at Turkey and Syria. And from there, it's just a quick jump over to Israel to take part in the Battle of Armageddon. At the time when the Chinese army will be crossing the Euphrates River, the river will be dried up. That's the prophecy. That network of roads will enable them to not just trade, but to also send their soldiers and reinforce the trade deals that they want to implement and to grab resources and so forth. And in the very last days, the Locust army from China will be traveling on this road, looting and killing and tormenting people. And that brings me to the next point, that this presence of China everywhere is causing animosity and resentment against China. Like I said, not just around the South China Sea, not just in Vietnam, Malaysia, and the Philippines, but it causes animosity in Africa, where workers are treated unfairly, in South America, where China is fishing in territorial waters of Argentina and so forth. There are clashes with China trying to take over resources in every part of the globe. And this animosity and what they call xenophobia will eventually turn the public opinion favorable towards the war with China, because in the end it will be basically China against the whole world, and they will kill 1/3 of mankind eventually. There are two minor points remaining here, and it's the pollution in China, and it's the God's instruction not to harm grass or trees. Now, pollution in China. In the Bible it says that the sun and the air were darkened with the smoke from the shaft when the Locust army came out from the Bottomless Pit. In our world, what often happens, I believe, is the spiritual world manifests in our physical world, and we have a reflection of the physical of the spiritual reality. We have a reflection in our physical temporary world, and the spiritual reality is that the sun and the air are darkened, and that's the reality in China, in our physical world, because in China on many days you cannot even see the sky. There's so much smoke, so much pollution. So I believe this reflects the reality of the situation when the Locust army is ready to come out of the bottomless pit. And the time is coming, because China is, the sun and air are darkened, and it's not very long before they are ready to come out of China and out of the bottomless pit and start acting like the Locust army that they are. God's instruction not to harm grass or trees. Why is it there? Because China destroys nature. That's what they do in their own country. The environment in China is damaged badly, and when they come out of China as the Locust army, God says you have the authority to torment and to kill, but for some reason God doesn't want them to harm the trees to destroy nature everywhere. Because that's what they would normally do. Because that's what they do in China, and that's what they would do everywhere else. And that's why this prohibition has to be there. Go out of China, but do not damage nature the same way you did it back home. Flashing wealth. This is a strange one too, because soldiers normally don't wear crowns. In this case, it's not really gold. It looks like gold. But I believe China will be ready to show off their newly acquired riches, and they will somehow implement something on the soldiers or somewhere in their army so that everybody knows wherever the Locust army goes, so that people will see that this is a rich and powerful nation, because they just have this need to just flash their newly acquired wealth. Now for Chinese Christians. Is there anything you can do about this? This could be a little disturbing. There's nothing you can do. This is a prophecy from the Bible, from God, and it will happen. You cannot stop this. You cannot pray it away. The only thing you can follow is Jesus' advice when he said, "Come out of her, my people." This is in reference to Babylon, and I think it applies here too. Basically, what it means, you don't have to come out of China. That's often impossible. You can stay in China and be Chinese. That's fine. But don't be part of this globalist machine. Do not join the Chinese army. Do not contribute to the weapons research. Do not try to steal anything, but do not try to acquire technology for the Chinese army. Do not build the Silk Road. Live a humble life. Pray, tell others about Jesus. There are still people in China who belong to God, but they don't know it yet. You cannot stop this, but you don't have to be part of this. You don't have to contribute to the fulfillment of this prophecy. As a Chinese Christian, you have to remember that the love of money is the root of all evil. And there's definitely the love of money there, and I think it's signified by these golden crowns on the army. The love of money is there. That's one of the reasons that China is allowing itself to be used in this evil role. You have to remember that you cannot serve Mammon and Jesus at the same time. Put God's kingdom first, and everything else will be added to you. God will provide for your needs, but you have to trust Him and don't try to grab things. As of now, we don't see much of a Christian fruit in China. We hear a lot about Chinese Christians, but I don't see any influence on the government, economic life, political life, traditions, and so forth. So you have to remember, as a Chinese Christian, you must not follow the evil, satanic Chinese traditions. You cannot love the dragon. The dragon is Satan. You have to denounce the dragon. That means no dragon boat races. That means you cannot carry the dragon on the Chinese New Year. If you have any pictures, figurines of dragon, you have to throw them out. You cannot have anything to do with the dragon. Dragon is Satan. Read the Bible, be filled with the Holy Spirit. Many nations have been used in the past to fulfill different, sometimes evil roles. And it was Persia, Babylon, Assyria, Germany, and now it's China. But you stand before God as an individual, and you are responsible for the choices that you make yourself. It doesn't matter where you come from, but what matters is the choices that you make. And that's why I'm saying this. Because how can you know what kind of choices you're supposed to make if you don't know the truth? So, knowing that China is now coming close to fulfilling this prophecy of being the Locust army, you have to realize that you have to disassociate yourself from anything that will allow this prophecy to be fulfilled. It will happen, but you don't have to be there, because China will eventually be responsible for 1/3 of deaths in the whole world. It will arrive at Europe's door, attack Israel, it will fight against God, and in the end it will be destroyed. God will destroy China, because He will destroy all those who oppose Him. And China, with the worship of the dragon and the love of money, it's not a godly place. And now there are Christians in China, so you have to make sure that you come out of her, said Jesus. Come out of her, my people. Do not be part of that. This is a very difficult prophecy. This is, the book of Revelation, it paints a scary picture of the very last days. And that's why Jesus is reminding us. He says, behold, I am coming. I think there are 3 times when he interjects, behold, I am coming, seemingly out of nowhere in between the prophecies. And he's doing that because you are reading this and you think, oh, this is going to look pretty bad. What am I to do? And it's scary stuff. So Jesus interjects, I am coming, do not worry, I will be there. I am the hope, I am the Savior. If you know me, you will be safe. But if you don't know me, he's also reminding those who don't know him. And he says, turn to me now, because there is still time. If you trust Jesus, even the 200 million soldier army is not a problem. John the Baptist ate locusts for breakfast. And it's interesting, this prophecy in Joel about locusts, because it talks about locusts in the book of Joel in chapter 1. But in chapter 2, it also talks about restoration. It's some of my most favorite verses. It says, I will restore to you the years that the swarming locust has eaten, and different types of locusts. And all of this is in the context of the very last days, because right after that, Joel 2:28, it says, it shall come to pass afterward, I will pour out my spirit on all flesh. And this is often used to justify the idea that there will be a major revival in the very last days. But this happens after the locust. This happens after the terrible destruction of the earth. After the battle of Armageddon, it seems like, that God will pour out his spirit on all flesh. So I believe it's on those who will survive the disasters of the wrath of God. And those will be the people who are left behind, not taken in rapture. And they always opposed God. But here, look at his mercy. He will still want to save them. And some of them will be saved. Not all. But Joel 2:31, it says, the sun shall be turned to darkness. And then right after that, Jesus will come. And Joel 2:32, again, God is reminding us, everyone who calls on the name shall be saved. Even after all these terrible things and people cursing his name and rejecting him for years and years, he says, if you call on my name, you shall be saved. And that's all it takes. It doesn't take a pastor laying hands on you. It doesn't take a priest with special rituals. No, it takes you turning to him and calling on his name. And quite often for people, it takes a disaster to realize that they need Jesus. And this is what's going to happen. It's going to be a disaster, and those who always thought that they don't need God, they will realize that they do need him. But you can call on his name now. You can avoid all of this. You don't have to be tormented by the scorpion locust army. You can be saved for now and for eternity. Thank you for listening. May the Lord richly bless you from Zion. Take care. Bye-bye.